What's up, everybody? My name's Erin. I'm here to give you a tutorial breakdown about this performance I just did of Chaka Khan's song, Through the Fire. It's actually a song I've been wanting to sing for a really long time. I saw her perform live in Prospect Park at a free concert in Brooklyn maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I was just so moved by the song, and I've been waiting for the right opportunity to do it, but it just didn't really present itself until I have been really diving into instrument racks and have come to realize how expressive they can be if you really design them and customize them. And like what I feel when I listen to this Chaka Khan song is feelings. And so I thought this will be a perfect opportunity to use a really expressive instrument rack to express these feelings. So before I dive into the rack itself, I'll just tell you a little bit about the signal flow. If you've watched my videos, you've seen that I've kind of like whittled it down to this, and I haven't really changed a lot of what's going on, but I have an Ableton push and a Novation Launch Key 49 here are the two controllers. And I'm not really even playing push, I'm just using it as a launching and looping surface for the most part. I'm doing a lot of the playing here, and I've also done some MIDI mapping of certain parameters to knobs and wheels on this controller. I'm using an Apogee Duet, and I'm receiving audio in from a microphone. This is a Telefunken custom M80, which I have. This is actually one of the new pieces. I'm really, really into it. And then also I'm receiving audio from the Minotaur analog bass synth, which I use all the time, running through this overdrive pedal. Once I started using the overdrive pedal, I really can't not use it anymore. So if you are ever thinking about buying a Moog or Foger, just realize that you'll never go back once you have them. And I'm sending MIDI to the Minotaur from this particular keyboard. So a lot of what makes this possible is routing, to be honest. But before we jump into the routing part of it, let's take a look at this instrument rack. So in Ableton, you can create really lush, large sounds, walls of sound if you stack things properly and deal with attack times properly and velocity. You can really, really customize these things. So I have 4 different instruments in here. I have an FM piano. It's just like a really simple kind of cheesy 80s, 90s synth. And I chose it on purpose because that was the era that the song came from, so I wanted to kind of like pay homage to the original recording. And then the next instrument is this Maxwell Live VI that you can get off of the Ableton website. Actually, every single thing I'm using in this set is absolutely free, and you can get it from the Ableton site in the free pack section. All you need is Live 9 Suite. And before the virtual instrument, there's an arpeggiator, which I have mapped to this mod wheel here. And it's also only coming through when I play a note at a certain velocity. So here we're looking at the key mapping, and you can see that this FM piano, I have it starting at around C1. So anything from here up, the FM piano is playing. And same thing with the Cat August VI. It's actually a little bit higher, but you can see if I play softly, you're only hearing the FM piano. If I play harder, you're hearing that with the arpeggiator. If I turn this down, no arpeggiator. So it's really reacting to the way I'm playing it in real time, which is part of that expressiveness of this particular rack. The next instrument I have is a solo cello. And after the cello, I have a reverb here. I think there's a reverb on the FM piano as well. So I'm able to do a lot of really customized effects processing within the rack, just on specific instruments. So this is happening in parallel. And then I can also affect the entire rack if I wanted to as well. And the last instrument is, I'm using external instrument here. So this is the Moog. And you can see I have a MIDI effect called pitch here. So as MIDI is received from my control device, it's pitching it down an entire octave. So when I play this C here, the cello's playing C, or C1, and the minotaur is playing C0. So I get this like really nice octave spread at the exact same time. So this is the key mapping, it's relatively straightforward. You know, you can just drag these up and down. This is the velocity mapping. So I have just this last instrument, this Max for Live instrument, popping through just when I play at a really high velocity. And then the last part of this is the chain selector. So I have a knob dedicated to the chain selector here. So at the beginning, I'm only playing the FM piano and the Max for Live device. And then as I move through the song, I'm just turning the chain selector. So now I'm also getting the cello. And then last but not least, for the last chorus, I turn it all the way up and you get the entire rack. So you can hear that crackling. So this is kind of the pitfall of using a lot of these devices, is that if you have everything on one single track, you're actually only accessing one core of your processor. So my computer has 4 cores. So I'm actually only accessing 25% of my computer's processing power at this point in time. And I'm pushing it to the limit, to the very edges of its capability. So for the most part, I'm just kind of playing the instrument, and I really have to kind of juggle the buffer size to get latency to a place where the computer can handle it, and then I can also hear myself in real time, but it's a challenge. So for the first part of the song, I'm just sort of off the grid, and it's something that I wanted to do on purpose because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of these performances you see are very click-based. But when you're being expressive, music breathes, and you want to kind of experience it in that capacity. So I wanted to make sure that the first part of the song I was off the grid and I was just free to let the cello note linger if that's exactly what I wanted to do, and to sustain chords and hold them out and let this breath sort of take place. And so after I get through the second chorus, then I do turn the metronome on, right? And I'm using fixed length in order to do a lot of these loopings because everything happens with a pickup. So I need to catch like the end of 4 before I hit the downbeat. So it's a little tricky, and it's a lot of like fancy, just fast button pushing, which really just comes down to practicing in order to get the loops to happen. And then the second track here, because I'm doing this in real time, I have a resample track, which is just taking audio from the instrument rack, and I'm just resampling it into another audio clip so that I can actually turn the virtual instrument or the rack off, which I have another knob mapped to turn it off. So that happens, all of a sudden I free up all this processing power, and I'm not experiencing any digital distortion. Then I'm just sequencing a really quick drum sequence, which is pretty simple, doing a lot of vocal looping just by launching. And then towards the end, the real trick to this vocal looping and why this is working here is that you can see I have the warping algorithm set to repitch for all of the audio that's being recorded in. And I set that in my preferences, right? So before I started the session, everything's set to repitch. So as I adjust the metronome and I slow the BPM down significantly, all of that audio goes with it. So a lot of the times, you associate warping with disassociating pitch and time and being able to sort of manipulate both separately, but I wanted to marry them back together. So I'm using this repitch algorithm, which is more of like a DJ-esque sort of a move. Pitch it down or time it down 20 BPM. So I start at 120, I pull it all the way down to 100. And then from there, I have an auto filter on the master. I'm adjusting frequency. I have it on this morph setting as well. So it goes all the way through the different, let me move this down so you can see it. The different bands, notch, band pass, high pass, low pass, moving the frequency back up towards the end. As I move the BPM back up to 140, which is considerably faster. So that's kind of me paying homage to the Kanye West Through the Wire track, which gave this Chaka Khan song life again in the early 2000s. And he pitched it up significantly in his song. So I go back up to basically the Kanye pitch and just sort of take out the loops one by one. And then at the very end, I have a filter delay that I turn on for this vocal group. and just kind of let it ride out towards the end. So that's the nuts and bolts of how it goes down here. And I hope you enjoyed the performance and you felt feelings, which was my intention.